You are watching On the Town, and I'm your host. Um, and
Pause
this,
it.
we're pausing for a second, guys. We have a pause button, so that's the good news. Let me just pause. I'm trying to see if the young lady is that's her. No, I didn't see anything.
Who's
On
that?
my that's brother.
Oh, what
So
was wrong?
it's on my page.
On the order.
All right. So,
I saw
but
this.
didn't so? How can you tell if she comes in the room?
Huh?
How
I'm
can you?
gonna keep this thing open.
Right.
It's connecting.
It's connecting. So we're connecting, guys. 1 second. Mhm.
Okay.
Ready?
This start. Yeah, start on.
Mhm. Hi, welcome back to On the Town. I'm your host, Tanya Cooper, and this week we are having a panel discussion on COVID, protest, and change, a conversation with educators and hopefully a student. So, all of our guests are, let me make it clear, all of our guests are expressing their own personal opinions and are not speaking on behalf of any business, school, organization, or entity. Our first panelist is currently, well, she's a student, but in case she comes into the room, we will be waiting for her. Elizabeth Sharma, we will refer to her as Eli. Our next guest holds a bachelor's degree in English with a minor in Korean. She's a certified TESOL certified English teacher as a second language teacher and a business English teacher for profession. Miss Sasha Simmons. Hi, Sasha. Our next
Hello.
guest, hi. Our next guest is known for her work with behavior challenged youth. She has worked in the private sector as well as the public for over 10 years, and she currently is a TA in our school district. Please welcome Ms. Terry Storms. Hi, Terry.
Hi.
Our next panelist is a world language and yoga teacher. She is currently studying yoga therapy. Please welcome Meredith Kramer. Hi.
Hey, everyone.
Our last but not least panelist has been teaching in the public schools for 25 years. He is also an adjunct professor of political science at Westchester Community College. He has written a number of books, but we'll only tell you about a couple of them. The Politics of Education, Critical Pedagogy, and the Everyday Classroom, and Education and Hope, Critical Pedagogies, and the Ethic of Care. They are all available on Amazon. Please welcome Dr. Tony Monchinsky. Welcome, guys. How are you
Thank
all?
you.
Thank you very much for joining us. So, just so our viewers know, over the last month or so, we witnessed the transformation after George Floyd was murdered. There were and still are protests going on that led to some changes, changes that are still taking place, as we all know. And then before we could recover from that, um, that whole atrocity thing, another thing happened. COVID-19 struck, and that put us all in like a lockdown. So there was no working, no socializing, no going in school, but instantly online learning was a must, right? So due to the lockdown, we realized that our way of learning had to change instantly, and that students and parents had to readjust. But also that helping our kids, most educators now too had to manage work at home. They had to manage their families. They had to calm the students down. They had to become quickly technically savvy, and they had to cyber teach in the classroom, via computers. So in all of this chaos, On the Town wanted to talk to those in education in the education field, in some capacity, to check in and have a conversation with some of the people on the educational front lines. Be that whether it's student or teacher's assistant, they all face challenges and helped our kids when we needed them most. As we speak, history is being rewritten now to the truth. Uh, so, with that being in mind, panelists, what have the effects of the protests and COVID on history and our students and educators? What effects have it had on us? That's where we're going with this. So, how has the new and I guess how we'll do the answering is whoever feels most, anybody can raise their hand and answer the question. That's how we'll do it. How has the new revelation, they're saying they're tearing down statues now and they're wanting to, take things out of books and stuff. How has this false history played out now for you, some of you, maybe even your personal life as a parent, as a teacher? I'm sure it's having an effect. So how has that played out is my first question. Anybody? Go ahead. Meredith?
Yes. So I think it's about time that we started taking down some of these statues. It's more than just it sounds silly, it's more than just a hunk of metal. It really is, inspires a visceral reaction to people. Like, this is whom we're honoring, and this is, you can't ignore your history because you are doomed to repeat it, right? We always say that. But one of my friends right now is in Germany, and she said there's not a lot of Nazi memorabilia. There's not a lot of, like, this false sense of pride and of nationalism, and they don't fly flags everywhere and that sort of thing. So I think that it's about time that we replace some of these statues with things that are much more encompassing of all of our stories, not just the cis white dudes. So that's where I stand.
Okay. All right. Anybody else want to tackle that one?
Yeah, if I may add,
yes.
Tanya?
Yes, please.
It's long overdue. These statues, not only were these people proponents of a system that enslaved untold human beings, but these southern statues especially, to be clear, these people were traitors to this country. These people broke away from the United States of America. And to hail their statues and keep them in place, I just don't understand what kind of message the people who are in favor of these statues think they're sending. They want to condemn people they see as traitors in the 19th century, the 20th century, the Rosenbergs, Ed Snowden, things like that. But they're going to keep up statues of General Robert E. Lee. They're going to keep up statues of slave owners. It's long overdue.
Yeah, I used to always wonder as a kid, like, as a kid you can't say much, so you just go with the program. And I would be in a class, and especially, I grew up here in Bedford. I went to Bedford Central School District, and I love my school. So they was always we always do what we have to do, put it that way. But as a kid, I would hear certain things and be like, my eyeball would raise up, but I couldn't say anything because then I'd be considered like the little rebellion kid. So now it's funny when I look back and I'm trying to think of all my teachers that are alive, and I'm like, so I was right after all. But it's a joke. That's a half joke. But I wonder, what roles for teachers now who have to go back and retell the lies that were made up from state level, not from local level. No school set out and said, oh, well, this is what we're going to say. They were given the same jargon to tell. So I wonder how that's going to play out now with the books and, Sasha, yes.
I think it's not really about what we have to say. I feel like there's a change in how the students are going to be receiving the information, because obviously they're in an age where they are more aware and they're able to really research what wasn't really a necessity to research in the past. They were kind of relying on us to give them information, whereas now it's kind of in your face, on the news, everywhere, social media. There's no way to escape some of the truth. So I think it's really interesting, and I'm really interested to see what students will have to say in response to this, because I think that they will it will be more of a conversation for sure. It will be more of a mutual conversation rather than just us teaching them something and then I think they'll enter it.
Well, I think that, are you guys all excited about the changes? Pretty much.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Definitely.
Okay. Any challenge? What challenges do you think the students will face on this one?
Division in the classroom, possibly.
Oh, I didn't think of that. Anybody else think of that one?
Mm-hmm.
Division in the classroom. Whoa, I didn't think of that. Huh?
Division in what way?
Like they do on Facebook.
Well, I think it's it's different, right? We're in quarantine. A lot of us haven't returned back to our usual social settings, but I think now we've changed our ways, and we're changing the way that we've communicated. So before, where it was a little bit seen as you just go to class, you hear what other people have to say, you may have a thought in your head, but you're not as motivated to say something. Whereas now, I think that individuals who didn't feel as motivated now feel like they have a voice. And I think that when classes start, it's going to be that voice, and then it's going to be the pre-existing voice that's going to kind of clash, hopefully in a positive way that there can have some growth come out of it. However, I think it's a reality that there's going to be more of a stronger reaction than before, especially since social media you have time to think, you have time to really get your debate together before starting these classes. And so I'm just curious, again, really curious to see how students are going to come into that. And I think, of course, it's up to us to be the mediators to make sure that everything is a learning flow rather than something that can get into really political and really unrest.
Right. Well, that's funny because you had answered my question. That was going to be my question: with the resistance to change, sort of like the statues. What's going on with the statues? Some people feel like, why are you taking down the statues? And some people, and this is where I said we have to have empathy on both sides, all sides, because some people really, their grandmother or their nonna or whoever told them these stories too. So it wasn't just us. Our grandparents told us the real story. Other people's stories, grandparents may have told them the not so real story because they believe the story because their parents told them the story. So it's like we can't technically hold them accountable because it's a hard pill to swallow when you find that you're on the other side instead of the other side. So with that being said, I try to tell young people, be patient and don't just think like, you take something down. Now, if it's me and I know it's wrong, I'd be like, take it down. I don't care. But it's not going to be easy just because I say that, if I say Christopher Columbus did not discover America, yes, we know that. But for some people that were told that all their lives for 5 and 6 generations, they're going to be freaking out right now. They're just like, what? What do you mean? So I don't have Christopher Columbus. What else do I have? Give me something else. So we have to understand that. And and like you said, Sasha, the teachers are the ones who I think have to lead on that of this is what we're doing and that's how we're doing it. So I don't know.
I'm sorry, Meredith.
No,
I'm sorry, thank you. So I was just going to say, to sort of piggyback on what Sasha was saying, it's the teachers and the educators and the parents and those of us maybe in that sort of middle generation who need to guide the students. The phrase in teaching, for the past 20 some odd years is guide on the side, right? Instead of like cracking open skulls and pouring in knowledge, right? So I think the problem is, people are like, oh, racism is going to die because the racists are dying off, but they're not. The racists are giving their children and grandchildren racism like you'd give them China, or you'd give them, your curly hair or something. So it's, as much as the technology is helpful and it's amazing, like Sasha was saying, you can take time and react and do your research. The kids believe anything that anybody posts on the internet. And it's that very first Wikipedia or whoever gets there at the top, whoever pays to put their results at the top of the search. We still have to give the students and children and whomever powers of discernment. How do we tell them anybody can put anything up on the internet?
Yes.
Challenge what you think.
Yes.
One of the schools that I was working at about a year ago, they had a whole class on how to tell what's a reliable source.
Right.
And it's that whole sort of Buddhist thing of don't trust anything that disagrees with your gut. In yoga, we talk about the gut being the second brain. I had a gut feeling, or, my stomach hurts, or trust that and have a responsible adult in your life that's going to guide you along that path and help you to navigate these really weird, uncomfortable feelings. Like you were saying, Tanya, about the statue, Christopher Columbus, should we have Columbus Day or Indigenous Peoples Day? How do you need people that are middle-aged, perhaps like myself, I don't know, to help you kind of navigate that successfully.
Yes.
One thing, if I may, that makes this tricky, Meredith and Tanya and everybody else, is when you work in a public school, when you're a staff member in a public school, you're actually not supposed to voice certain opinions that could be seen a certain way. So you're not supposed to come across as proselytizing to students and trying to get them seeking a certain way. Now, the way this works is to uphold the status quo, which traditionally has been conservative, which traditionally has been George Washington, wonderful founder of this country, chopped down the cherry tree, didn't tell a lie. It hasn't been George Washington, owned 300 human beings in his lifetime, was the wealthiest man at the time of the American Revolution, was one of the handful of upper class people who wrote the Constitution for the country that excluded most of the population of the country. And so we're discouraged. For example, if the president, Trump, now says something racist or sexist, I'm not supposed to. I could.
Right.
But I'd get in trouble if I went to school and said, "Hey, you see what he said? That's racist. That's sexist.
Right.
He was making fun of disabled people.
Right.
He's holding trans people down."
Right.
You know, I could get in trouble for that.
Yes, I've seen it happen.
You know, because education is a conservative institution. Having said that, though, the opposite of that is education. Public education is also, it's got this amazing potential because it exists to educate everyone.
Right.
That's its purpose, right?
Right.
So it's this constant give and take, this constant tension that we walk.
Yes.
Yes. Wow. Well, that's a lot. Then, and thank you for that. You guys are really on point here. I want to ask you all, what strain has COVID placed on you all as students, teachers, assistants, whatever role you play? What strain? What do you think with COVID? What strain has that put on you? Whether that's classroom, online learning, whatever it is.
Well, I was asked to help a young lady, a sixth grader, from March until June with her work on a daily basis. There were days when she expressed so many different emotions during those months. One day she was just totally overwhelmed. One day she cried. She cried a couple of days. She felt very abandoned by her teacher, but I tried to explain to her that wasn't what it was. Everybody was thrown into the same situation at the same time. You know what I mean? I'm here to help you, motivating her. Like, her focus was so off. Like, some days she would just get up and she'd walk out of the room. I'm like, "What are you doing? We're going to get this done."
Right.
We'd be on the computer for like 5 hours some days, a lot of days, because she just didn't want it. She couldn't stay focused. She had her new dog. She had, all these different things that were distracting her that I'm sure she didn't feel that way when she was in school. But we made it through, you know what I mean? But it was a really hard task. It really was.
Well,
I completely agree with you. I feel like the biggest challenge has been distractions in the household, parents hovering or parents absent, and the student just having no responsibility to the work, and then we having to kind of hold them accountable for things, and then feel, it's like, then who do they turn to? If they feel like they're being bullied by their teacher, then they're not going to want to complete the work. If they feel like they're not being encouraged by their parents, then they're not going to want to complete the work. So I think it's a really odd time because some students really don't thrive on the virtual platform. Some do, but they have always thrived, right? But some really, they need that contact face-to-face, going to a different space every single day, or Monday through Friday. They need that.
Right.
Whereas now they don't have that. Maybe they're at home, maybe they're in difficult situations at home, and it's just amplified. So I agree with you completely.
Yeah, you had to kind of basically play psychologist 101 as well. I see. So, because I had a kid say to me, one of my neighbors, we were just walking, this is when everything started happening and school wasn't out yet, and he says, "Oh, we got to do school online, and I'm so nervous." And I said, "Why are you nervous, honey?" He said, "Because I can't do that, I can't do that." And I was like, first of all, breathe. You can do anything, because you know why? I said, "I've been watching you walk up and down the street for 2 years, talk to you and your doggy, and you're the smartest kid I know. So you can do anything." I just tried to coach him into thinking oh, okay. So all you're doing is you're going to be doing everything you do online, and no, you won't see your friends every day and give them hugs and high fives, but you can still get the information you need so that you can get to school. So I always tease him, tell him he's got to be a judge or a lawyer or like a president. I put a lot of pressure on the local kids, But I think how many of you had to learn to be techies, tech stuff? Yeah. Yes, I can imagine. Well, how did you catch up to speed? Because I couldn't figure that out for my life. I said, how did these teachers literally learn, about lighting? Well, you have to do photography too. I forgot, right? Lighting 101, right? And then how to get onto this, Zoom, right? I was like, how did they do it? So tell me, somebody give me a story.
So, the past couple of years, most schools use Google Classroom, because they're all sort of Google-based. Some schools use Microsoft Word, et cetera. But I just kind of pushed it by the wayside, and I taught the way that I've always taught. And, the school that I was in, it was like different phases. The first week we were out, we weren't allowed to teach anything new. It was just kind of review and get them through, and it was right at the end of a marking period, and it was kind of a mess.
Right.
And then it went to just put stuff up online and grade 100 papers every day, giving feedback. eventually we switched to online classes where the class would meet for a half hour, on certain days and certain times. So
okay, so there was phases to it.
there was phases, yeah.
Okay, that's
So that was better because you can actually see them. But then you have the point of, 17-year-olds don't want to be on camera.
No.
They want to turn. So I'm teaching to a dozen avatars. So it's
Right.
and they laugh and it went okay and it was better to be in person, so to speak, at least being talking to a face. But I ignored a lot of it because I'm like, I'm having a hard enough time just keeping my head above water. I'm not going to start learning. And there's all these tools. There's one tool I found out about that I'm like, I don't get it. Like, not only literally I don't understand it, but I don't understand the point. I don't know what we're doing here, why this even exists. But, I showed videos when I could. I did what I could, but I just pushed it to the side because I'm like, I need to just deliver instruction, just get them the material.
Right.
And maybe that's the wrong attitude, but I didn't want to add insult to injury
Right.
and start learning something in the middle of learning everything else.
Right. Anybody else felt that way? Okay. So, how did you guys deal with children and young people who had special needs or like were visual learners? How were you able to cope with that and figure out your new challenge?
There were some students I actually worked with one-on-one, where I would have to sit on line with them, like in a Google Meet, similar to this, where I would read to them, or we would watch the video together at the same time and discuss it, And if that's what they needed, then that's what we do for them. But it's different than what was going on in the classroom beforehand.
Okay. Wow. So I just I feel so bad for my kids that were visual learners. I was like, they must be in shock. And some of our kids who not only have special needs, but who may have be dealing with depression and other stuff along with that. So there was a lot of challenges. Did you find any advantages of of this online teaching? Did anybody find any advantages?
I think there's more flexibility with the resources that you can bring in just at a moment's notice. You can think of something and you can kind of just search it up and, watch it with them and screencast it with them. But again, I don't mean to backtrack, but to go back to your previous question with regard to the special needs, I think it's more about getting like outside materials. So I've had to buy things like more like boards and just little materials and markers, make like cards and things for the kids to kind of follow along a little bit more than this, because some students, they don't need that, but some students really do, and without those tools they really start to lose interest and fall behind very quickly.
Yes.
So sorry to backtrack.
No, that's great, and that's because that is true. We're down to like 5 minutes, so I have a few more questions for you guys. I can't believe the time is going this quick. But we only do a half an hour because a lot of people like me have ADHD and they can't focus. So that's why we only do half an hour. So you guys, did this give you more free time with your family or less? And any advice for parents or students? Because I would think that, yeah.
I know that the mother of the little girl I was working with, I think her parents had a tendency of making it seem like it was so bad, like, you know what I mean? And I just didn't really like that. It was like, well, this is really terrible, Terry, and her daughter's hearing it, so it's that's affecting her. You know what I mean? She's like, I was crying the other day because because I just feel bad for my kids and that. She's saying it right in the presence of her daughter, which influences her daughter's ability to think that this is okay.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's one thing I didn't like, and for her, I would say to her, "Why do you feel bad? Like this is not anything that was pre-planned. You know what I mean? You just have to make the best of it and get through it. You know what I mean? So I said you shouldn't feel bad for them.
So have a positive attitude if you're a parent or a kid. First of all, that's a good piece of advice. Okay. Anybody else?
It just underscores the importance of the relationship between home and school. As a teacher, but also as a parent, I've always understood, like, I never relied on the school to teach my kids how to read. Me and my wife at the time taught our kids how to read. We taught our kids the multiplication tables. We didn't expect they were just going to pick that up at school. And I think this really hammers home, like, you have to make time and take the time. And I know people are busy and people have their own work to do at home,
Mhm.
but
Yes.
it's always been that way. You know,
Right.
it's always been. I think it's really emphasized it with the last few months.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, that's very important that we have to be doing our job as parents too. We can't expect you to be like, here you go, just take them and do everything.
Right.
Yeah, no,
Right.
it's a challenge. And I mean, honestly, I think that being in quarantine has made some parents step their game up 100%. People
Yes.
I had some statement, they were even shocked that they stepped up their game, you know, and the dads who normally it's away all day said, I've actually enjoyed this time with my kids, and I realize now how much I was not spending with them. So it makes,
Right.
you know, in that sense, I have to look at COVID as well. Maybe this is a way for us to, you know, figure out where we all belong and be confident for the kids, so then they know where they belong, and that no matter what's going on in the world, there's always some place for you to belong. You know,
Right.
so what's the best advice you guys can give teachers that are entering this field now with this whole restriction and mask and, you know, sanitizer in place? Anything good? Sash, I know you've taught to Asian students, correct? Before?
Yes,
Yeah.
ESL.
Is that different than teaching to our regular American students, or the same?
It has its differences and similarities. I mean, as far as asking about what's going on in America, they definitely do.
Okay.
You know, so it's kind of the same dynamic. You get on and like they want to talk about that,
Okay.
and also with the, you know, having to implement certain things, like it's kind of the same, except there's a language barrier, of course, and for them it's learning English as
Right.
their second language rather than just working on regular English literature.
Okay.
But I would say the advice I would give to the students or parents, I would just say maintain a schedule, because I think that
Schedule.
quarantine has really put people in a space where they can become really out of balance
Yes.
and lose that that grind, that every day get up, do this, do that, like, and it's really easy to just lounge around. I've had students come online in their you know it wasn't appropriate, and so I had to say to them, like, you need to like dress like you're
Show
coming
up.
to school,
Right.
and kind of try to motivate them. And you know, it got to the point where I had to start saying, okay, I'm gonna give a virtual prize, because you can't give a real prize, to who has, you know, who's like really expressed themselves obviously with
Right.
their look and really tried this morning.
Right.
And you know,
Good for
because
you.
at the end of the day, like, it is still an academic space, and I think that keeping it that way is really important. And as far as going into the new, whatever is going to be our new normal,
Mhm.
I would say throwing out expectations for new teachers and just kind of remaining positive, because the students will look at you. Really, they're going to look at you and they're going to say, they're going to act accordingly to how you act.
Mhm.
I mean, I work with younger students, so I'm not sure how it is for the high schoolers, but especially for the younger students, they're very easily influenced
Yeah.
by the teacher's attitude. So just, you know, keeping it positive, because as you saw earlier with the parents, like, the parents are a huge factor in how their attitude is. If the parent is saying, oh, this is the worst thing
Terry
ever, the
said
kids
that,
are going
yeah.
to say, oh, this is the worst thing ever. So I think it's up to us to kind of counterbalance that negativity and just try to keep them positive and excited to learn.
Thank you. That is brilliant.
Right.
So you and Terry both hit that right on the head. The remaining positive is number one.
Yeah.
Sasha, you said maintaining a calendar, or what'd you say?
Routine.
A routine. Excuse me. That's very important. And did you guys want to? Anybody else want to add any tips? Do you have any advice for even like the state, because they're trying to come with new plans to put the kids back in school in New York? I always thought they should act to the educators first. That was just my common sense, but nobody seems to be asking you guys. So I would like to know, do you have any advice for anyone? Because this is all new to all of us, but as you've been in it, you know what I'm saying? So now you know, oh yeah, so we know we're going to do, 4 kids in the classroom, or we're going to, those are the things. If I was somebody from the state, I'd be asking all my educators. That's just me though. So I don't know. No more advice, anybody? Because we have to go. Unfortunately, I cannot believe that it's time to go. But any more advice for anybody that we missed?
No, just keep a positive mindset and understand that this will pass
Okay.
and things will get back to normal or the new normal. And, you know, again, as many problems as this country has, Tanya, this is still, history proves, a remarkable country.
Yes.
The people are remarkable.
Resilient.
And we will get through this.
Absolutely.
And hopefully, with all the social activism that's coming out of this right now, it will get to a better place as long as we keep that momentum going.
Yes.
Right.
Thank you so much. So that about wraps it up for us tonight, guys. We want to thank each of our guests, Dr. Tony Manchitsky, Terry Storms, Sasha Simmons, and Meredith Kramer. We thank you very much, and we want everyone to check out Dr. Manchitsky's book on Amazon. And anyone have any last requests before we leave? Well, we thank you so much.
I just want to say, stay safe, everybody.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank you
stay
very
safe
much for
and
joining us,
healthy.
guys.
Please.
I'll talk to you soon.
Okay,
Thank you.
bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.